Hey guys, welcome. My name is Patrick Hart. I'm one of your co-hosts on Dem-NPL podcast, uNDeterred. Aren't these new backgrounds great? Shout out to Carrie and Cheryl for getting them to us. You guys, I can't believe it. This is already our 5th episode. We've gotten an amazing amount of views and response from this. Keep watching, keep sharing. We absolutely need that. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to shoot it over to Lisa Hermosillo really quick, our co-host from Minot. Lisa, you want to say hi this morning?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been up to quite a bit. It's been a really busy week for me. I went down to Dickinson on Wednesday night for their reorg, and I was really excited to be there because I have recently announced my run for vice chair of the Dem-NPL. So it was a great opportunity for me to meet people and to answer questions that they may have about the campaign. And from what I heard, there were new people that showed up to that meeting. And so that just means that the word is getting out there for these meetings. And that was a big focus of that night, was talking about growing our presence. And so it was a great time. I got home really late. I left that same night yet, and in time to go live on the Dakotan, which they actually gave us a shout out. They heard about our podcast. And that was really exciting to hear that, because, again, that just means that people are hearing about us, and that was really exciting. I also, earlier that day, I went and testified against more of the bills that have been pushed a lot by Lori Van Winkle, and as everyone has heard, some of the comments that she has made recently, it feels really good, and to know that a lot of these bills that have been pushed are continually getting shot down left and right. So it's a win in my book.
Well, thanks, Lori. God, I've been absolutely butchering everyone's name for all week, so sorry about that. Thanks, Lisa. Jamie, what's new in your world this week?
Well, congratulations, Lisa, on announcing the run for vice chair. It's exciting. I know Adam Goldwyn announced officially that he's running for re-election as chair as well. So good to see that. And we'll see if anyone else gets in. Competition is always great, but wish you all the best. I actually joined Lisa in Dickinson for the districts 36, 37, 39 reorganization last week. A special thank you and shout out to Joan Heckerman for organizing that, as well as to the district chairs Lauren and Mel for putting it all together. It was held in conjunction or right after the Drinking Liberally group in Dickinson that meets on a regular basis. It was an incredible turnout. Almost 40 people were there. And it was negative 20 degrees on Wednesday night. Impressive that there were so many people coming out in the weather to have a reorg and to kind of make it clear that they're not giving up. And so it was fantastic. They filled all of their officer elections, which hasn't happened in quite some time. So there's a lot of fire out there and people excited everywhere, but certainly there is in Dickinson. I was really happy to see that. You know, as we mentioned before, I'm going to, I think, almost all of the reorg meetings around the state. It's at least my goal anyway. I think there's maybe 3 that I can't because they're in conflict with each other. And so I sort of have to pick and choose. But I do want to kind of share a little bit about the message I'm delivering at these. And it's not just part of it's an update about what's happening with the DNC. As the DNC National Committee man, I have some insight to share about kind of the direction that the national party is taking. And I'm always happy to answer any questions. If people want to find me on the social media or go on the state party website for my email address, happy to answer any questions that people might have. But in addition to that, I'm also talking about just kind of what's going on in our country right now in terms of the actions the president and the Republicans are taking, and the dangers that they pose for everyone in our country and the world. And my message to you who's watching or listening today, as well as to those who are going to the reorg meetings, is that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be a little scared and nervous, but this is not the time for us to give up. It's really critical that we start right now looking for candidates to run in the next cycle next year. It's really important that we fill every single space in terms of the district officer roles. If our democracy is at risk, the very last thing we should be doing is making it easier for them by not running people in every single spot. And so if you are listening or watching, and this is something that you've considered before, maybe running, you should do it. You should at least think about it and ask people who've done it before about it. Pat and Lisa and I have all run for office. We, mine was many years ago, 20 years ago now. And we did not make it, but I can tell you all three of us felt like it was a worthwhile endeavor. And it was one of the best things that we've ever done. And at least in a few cases, we'll hopefully do it again. Not me, but for Pat and Lisa, I certainly hope for that. And it's something that I really want you to consider. And so as the three of us and others are going around the state, speaking at these various reorgs, pull us aside if you have questions about what it's like to run, how do you get started. We're happy to be very honest about the good and the bad with you as you consider it. So my core message is don't let what's happening in our country scare you off from making your voice heard. And don't sit by and just let it happen. At a minimum, figure out what you can do to make a difference and do it. That's the message I'm delivering. And so I would encourage everyone to find your local reorg meeting at Dem-NPL.com. Almost every district is still yet to meet. I think only 4 of the 47 districts have met so far. And so I encourage you to look at it. I think the next one coming up after this podcast airs is the Cass County districts this Saturday at the one of the middle schools in Fargo. So it's all the Cass County districts. So if you're in Cass County, please come and kind of learn a little bit more about what you can do. So that's the message that I delivered in Dickinson. I'll be delivering everywhere and just trying to encourage people to run. And when we see what's happening right now in Bismarck and the legislature, we can see what happens when we leave races uncontested. And all it takes is 1 or 2 really, really bad apples on the Republican side to completely destroy whatever good can come out of that legislature, because some of the bad happening is so bad, whether that be school vouchers, putting IVF at risk, trying to create a state-run religion, whatever it is, it's bad. And it's up to all of us, not the 3 of us, all of us, to prevent that from happening in the future. So that's really what I have my message to share today, Pat.
Well, I appreciate that, Jamie. And I'll tell you guys too, and I'm really excited later, our long form interviews with Trygve Hammer. And I mentioned that this last cycle running for lieutenant governor, I was in 17 parades, and I was a little hesitant for Dickinson's. I thought, why are we going out there? Is it really going to be a net return on investment in time and energy? And we went out to Kelly Armstrong's, my opponent's hometown, and I got more tips of the hat. I got more acknowledgement, more looks than I'd had at any other parade. And I really think that people are starting to realize what's going on. And I am glad that we are going into these, deep red districts and areas because there are Democrats there. And
yeah, I was going to mention, Lisa and I were just talking a week or 2 ago, and she said something that really resonated with me that I shared in Dickinson. I gave you credit for it, Lisa, when I said this, and I'll do this everywhere, that this was something you said. We were talking about what winning looks like. And in some places, winning means we win that legislative seat. In some places, winning might mean that we're just keeping the party alive a little longer for the winds to swing back our way. And Lisa talked about a relay race. And if you're running a relay race, if you're that first, second, third runner, your job is just to hold that baton, not drop it, move as far and fast as you can, and get it to the next person. One of those people is going to end up winning that relay race. And so for those folks out there in the Dickinson and the Williston and really all over our state, that's been a real struggle lately. Maybe your job is just to hold that baton and get it down the road or get it down the track to pass it to the next person. And I think that's what we're starting to see all over the state with all of these meetings that people are showing up at that they haven't shown up at before, is they're ready to take that baton and at least move it to the next runner, the runner that might win the race at the end.
No, I think you're spot on. And I'm sorry I couldn't make it out. I was the closest of the three of us to that meeting, but I couldn't. But I'll tell you what, we were at a Bisman Dems meeting on Monday night, and I have never seen so many people in the Kennedy Center as I did that night. We ran out of chairs. I bet there was almost 60 people, standing room only. And again, in my 10 years I've been doing this, never, ever have there been so many people there. So there is energy. So if you guys are listening, please lean in. And to piggyback on something you said, Jamie, I think nationally what we're seeing is we're seeing segments of our population get beat down and demoralized. And I don't really think that Donald Trump is going to deport 12 million people. I don't think that can logistically happen. But I think that we can, or he can, beat them down into a point where they don't feel like humans, where they feel they're subhuman. And I think that's the end in mind. So please don't do that. Please don't feel that way. The other thing I heard this week is about resiliency. When you are being resilient, you do not feel like you're being resilient. That is a past tense feeling. You are feeling probably at the end of your rope, like you ain't got nothing left, like there's no friends in the world, and you're doing everything you can to keep your head above water and you're struggling. That is being resilient, and you will see that in the future. But you'll see that backwards. So keep that in mind. There is energy. We do have our stuff together. You guys, on Wednesday, so I had a Monday night Dem night. On Wednesday, our good friend Cheryl Biller, our executive director, came to Bismarck, and we looked at policy committee meeting venues for May 3rd. Of course, the state policy meeting, we're going to elect people like Lisa Hermosillo, Adam Goldwyn, myself. I am also running for state treasurer again, state party treasurer. If you guys want to challenge us, please do. I think the more people in these races are great. I remember at my first event, there was 5 people that challenged Kylie Overson as chair. It was my first statewide reorg. It was energetic. It was amazing. We're also going to elect regional reps. Now that night, we're going to have a fundraiser, the governor's dinner. And this is the first announcement. We got keynote speaker Harry Dunn. And Harry Dunn was a Capitol police officer at the U.S. Capitol when it was stormed on January 6th. He's going to come talk about his experiences, talk about his take on things. And I think that that's really exciting person to get. Usually we struggle getting keynote speakers, and I'm really excited that we got such a high level person to come to North Dakota. And so that's really exciting. That's our big news. We also, Cheryl Biller and I looked at venues for state convention in 2026. And Carrie Brecker and Cheryl are also looking at booking 2028. So your state leadership is on the top of the ball. We're really working in addition to monitoring what's happening in session. So you guys, this week I got Trygve Hammer for a long form interview, and I'll let Trygve kind of introduce himself in a couple minutes in the video. But in addition to Trygve Hammer, who ran for U.S. House on the ballot this cycle, Trygve was supported by an absolutely amazing woman, Kelly. And she's been through several cycles, and I just wanted to give her a shout out because, you know, being a part of this and being in a supporting staff is equally as important as running in the position itself. So Kelly Hammer, thank you for your efforts in being a candidate spouse. And without any further ado, you guys, I'll throw it over to the interview. Trygve Hammer. Hey, y'all, I'm really excited. I have a good friend, candidate that I've shared the ballot with now twice, Trygve Hammer, on with us. Trygve is ran as, and Trygve, if I mess any of this up, let me know. Trygve is ran as U.S. House this cycle in 2024. Last cycle is PSC in 2022, and in 2020 as representative in your district?
Yep, for District 6 House.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know, it's funny, like all the things now. Apparently, I'm establishment. I've been doing this for almost a decade. But anyway, Trygve, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to start off with one that I really like asking people, a question that if you've been listening to the interviews, you've heard before. And my first question that I'm absolutely excited to hear about is what and how you think Dems in North Dakota should be defined.
We should be defining ourselves as the party of ordinary people. When I was campaigning for the U.S. House, I talked about working on the railroad, working in the oil field. We are the party of the working class. Our messaging just has not been very good. We need to get back to those roots. We are not the party of the oligarchs. We're not the party of the super wealthy. We are the only party that really cares about the way that wealth has been distributed upward so much. And we're the party that believes that government can and should work for you, and we want to make it work for ordinary North Dakotans.
You know, I once heard Senator Tim Mathern say, and this was again 5 or 8 years ago at the Heritage Center at a reorg, he said that Democrats believe in government. I believe that government can make this world a better place. And I feel that fundamentally the Republicans would disagree with me when I say that.
Yeah, and government of the people, by the people, for the people in North Dakota right now, and really in the country. You look at Elon Musk. What we have is government by the privileged, for the privileged.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. So I'm just gonna touch on that. You brought up Elon. Do you want to go on that rabbit hole right away? Is that okay? What do you think of Elon and Doge?
Well, for one thing, when you create a branch of the government like that, or a department of the government, that's done by Congress. It's created by Congress, it's funded by Congress, and then the president executes. They're the executive branch. That's their job. So right now, what are Republicans in Congress even there for? Because they are not being that check and balance. They are letting Doge do their work. Can they not get together and decide how things should be budgeted, how things should be run? Can they not do their job, basically? And they are forgetting that they took that oath to support and defend the Constitution, not the president. And our three there, Voracek, Kramer, and I can't believe it, Hoeven, they've just completely forgotten that. And it is very clear that both Hoeven and Kramer would have voted for Matt Gaetz. They would have voted to confirm him. They're voting for everybody. They are voting the party line. They're not putting any thought into it. And really, we are not hiring the best people.
Well, it's funny, you mentioned you had just a slip, and it happens on Hoeven. And why I think that maybe you're unable to pick up his name off the drop of a hat like that is because he doesn't really do anything.
Right. You never hear from him. He pops up in front of TV cameras once in a while.
I was really surprised to bring it back to the election. 17, 19 parades we were in? Oh my gosh, all over the state. We never saw Kelly Armstrong. I never saw Kramer. I never saw Hoeven. I saw Fedorchak at a parade or two, and I saw Randy Chrisman with PSC a couple times. But I loved getting out and seeing people. I loved campaigning, and we did not see any Republicans on the trail at all the whole summer. Is that true?
Oh yeah, that is very true. And man, I wish it would have moved the needle more.
Yeah,
it's we're in a different media environment now, and I think right now what we're doing here is addressing that, and we've got some other podcasts going, and got to find our way in, because you got to get that media message out there. And how do we find those people who were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out on election day? Those people probably voted. They looked at their ballot. They said, Joe Biden's not on there. They go home, or they take out their phone when they're done and say, did Joe Biden drop out? So we really need to get people educated, and we really need to do that outreach and that messaging. And the other thing is, during my debate, I criticized Julie Fedorchak for how many times she said Joe Biden. But really, that was what it was about. They got on that message, Bidenflation. They just stuck right on it, and nothing else mattered. And that was an attack message. that was a message against Democrats. And we didn't do enough of that. We did not attack in the way that we should have. And we have to do that the next time around. And they're giving us plenty of ammunition down there in Bismarck again.
You know who I saw, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it back down just a second. I saw Mr. Rios this week.
Yeah.
My executive director, Cheryl Biller, was in town. We were looking at places to have our May 3rd state reorg. We have an amazing announcement on that, by the way. We'll wait for that for the end. But we went to the Capitol, saw our good friends, Jamie Davis, ran into Josh Boucher. But I saw Rios, and this haircut thing that he's got on his head, like it's as bad as the legislation he's pushing forward. I don't know. I want to think more of him because he got elected, but every time I see him, I think, what's going on here?
Well, Rob Port did a story on him, and then and I commented under that because I had a picture of Mitch Rios, not Nico Rios. Mitch Rios was the guy I knew back in college. Had a picture of Nico Rios on there, and my comment was I could have given a better haircut with using my feet and a pair of elementary school safety scissors. He was, looks awful. And the thinking there, I just completely do not understand. And we have some real whacked out religious kind of thinking down there. And, I grew up Lutheran in Velva, North Dakota, going to Oak Valley Lutheran Church. In 2000, I became Catholic in Hawaii. I went through RCIA out there. And what they're talking about is like nothing I have ever seen in scripture. And it seems both not Christian and anti-American to me.
You know what I've been thinking about this Christian nationalism again, and I'm sorry, I didn't think we were going to talk about any of this today. But when I think about Christian nationalism, I think of all the religious wars that we've had over the last 200 or 300 years, and how people have literally been starting and fighting wars over religion and over scripture for thousands of years. And I thought we got over it because we have a government that's by the people, for the people, not for the church. And all of a sudden, we're seeing a slew of bills, whether it's public school dollars going to private schools. I'm not against church schools, but let's keep them a church. We're vote the other day to put a pastor in schools or a chaplain in schools. Like, what is going on here? Let alone, Christ the King with Rios. Now you got me stumbling on his name.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And the thing about when you start inserting religion into your politics is you can say, well, God said, and that's the end of the argument. Oh, it says in scripture this. The other day, Lori Van Winkle, who represents my district, District 3, down in the state house, said that, the only reason we need this IVF is because, God has cursed the wombs of the women because of abortion. And she said this in session right there. You can find it on video. Absolutely crazy. And there's nothing that does not match with scripture. It doesn't match with any sane theology I have ever heard. It sounds a little bit like, it's God as the voodoo wizard down in the Caribbean poking his needles in something, and that is not the Christian God.
Yeah, I don't get it. And then again, I only did one piece of testimony so far this year. I testified for school lunch for children, 2 bills. Of course, Lori Beth's been carrying that bill for multiple sessions, and the exact bill she's carrying got due pass out of committee, except it was carried by a Republican this cycle. Of course, they're stealing our ideas. The reason I bring that up is because there's good bills out there. There's an effort to make good government out there. And then there's this super rabid right-wing faction that I'll tell you what, here's what I'm really mad about. I'm mad that the leaders, the old guard of the Republican Party is letting this happen. They're not taking these young, inexperienced, new to their job legislators, taking them under their wing, showing them the budget, letting them know it's important. They're letting them do this. Example of that too is all the property tax bills that the Republicans have brought forth. I don't know why there isn't a caucus discussion by saying, these are the ideas, this is the popular opinion, this is how we stand on it. Let's put these 2 or 3 bills together. Instead, there's 25 or 30. And I'm all about ideas, but that does take a lot of time to work through committee. And I think if there was consolidation on that, we'd have a better form of government, a better functioning government. And then we wouldn't get bogged down in all this, the rhubarb, the state plant debacle as well, if you've been paying attention to that. But yeah, so Lori Van Winkle, what do you guys got in mind on? Do you guys have someone ready to run against her? Is she up this next cycle?
We will. Lisa Hermosillo was actually considering moving over to District 3, which I am actually not sure that either Hoverson or Van Winkle live in the district. She's in real estate. I'm not sure what he's in, but it seems like they might not even live in the district. But Lisa's thinking about getting into District 3 and maybe getting into that race. And if not, we'll have somebody. We'll have somebody to run. We're gonna fill that slate this time in both Districts 3 and 5.
It's I hear again in the news that the Democrats are dead, and then I campaign with people like you. I meet people like Lisa Hermosillo on the way. I think we have an absolutely amazing staff. I think we have an amazing volunteer group. I think our donors are funded and ready to step up. And I think like our volunteers have been through multiple cycles. I'd be worried if I was the Republican establishment because they are so fractured at this moment. There is no cognitive leader. Their chair, Sandy Sanford, doesn't seem to be leading from within. They seem to be getting taken over by factions, and we have our shit together. So I think we're sitting really good, and we have to keep doubling down.
Yep, and it's that messaging thing. We have to get what is happening in Bismarck out to everybody, out for everybody to know, and we're working on that. I think people are working on that all around the state. And we try these multiple avenues and you see what breaks through. And once you find that, you exploit that gap. You go after where things are working and put as much effort as you can into that and get that information out there. We can make a difference, but we need to let people know what's going on.
Well, I'm going to bring it back for a second. You ran against Julie Fedorchak, and South Dakota just voted to restrict common carrier status on the carbon pipeline. Now, if you guys don't know, Summit Carbon Solutions wants to put a pipeline through a third of this nation. They want it to inject carbon into Julie Fedorchak's land, by the way, who sat on the Public Service Commission and signed off on the permit allowing the carbon to flow through North Dakota, only to be, again, pumped into her land. Common carrier status allows a company like Summit to take land from farmers to put a pipeline in their fields. South Dakota rejected that status. What are your thoughts on that, Trygve?
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. South Dakota might stop the whole thing. And also, when I mentioned this before, the defense was, well, when we bought the land, we didn't know that was going to happen. This stuff wasn't even being talked about. Well, for one thing, it was being talked about. And for another thing, it doesn't have to work just that way. Summit Carbon Solutions, don't you think they know who owned every bit of land along the path where they wanted to take their pipeline? And if nothing else, it's a bad look. It's like in 2013 when Judge Hovland, very conservative Republican judge, chastised Kevin Kramer and the entire PSC for taking money from the PACs associated with the companies they regulated. Well, Julie Fedorchak was on the PSC at that time, and she just continued to take that money. And he had called it, devoid of common sense and presenting a real appearance of impropriety. So they just ignored that and kept doing it. So I don't know why I should assume that they're going to do the right thing or that the right thing's being done on this carbon pipeline.
One thing that I was surprised at when I was at the PSC for 3 years regulating elevators, I never took a single hat a knife. I didn't take any swag from any of the elevators I regulated. And then I was field staff. And when I came in, again, Julie Fedorchak was there, Randy Chrisman, Brian Crocious for some time. I couldn't believe at the Christmas party, they're handing out swag from Lignite Energy, from the coal companies. And it's like, you're really giving employees swag from the people they regulate? It was blatantly obvious to me that that should not be happening. Why is that merchandise even in the office?
Again, that's that appearance of impropriety that you're supposed to avoid at all costs.
Yeah, it was wildly blatantly to me. And now the thing that I see now, help me out if you can do this better than I can, but Julie Fedorchak was appointed, correct?
Yep, she was appointed and then ran for re-election.
Was Brian
ran for election?
Was Brian Koch appointed? Was he the next public service commissioner?
I do not know for sure.
And I'm putting you on the spot with that. So it was Fedorchak and Koch and Chrisman. And then Brian Koch went to FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then they backfilled his position with Brian Crocious, who's a newspaper man. I actually think Brian's a decent guy.
Yeah. And Sherry Hogenhofer was also appointed.
Well, then Brian Crocious went to tax commission when Ryan Rauschenberger got too drunk for the last time. I'll just say it for what it is. And then Sherry Hogenhofer got appointed. Now Julie Fedorchak's out, and they appointed Jill Steinwan. Ooh, that name isn't right. Anyway, Jill's father-in-law runs the Bank of North Dakota, or is number 2 at the Bank of North Dakota. So it's wild to me how these people keep getting appointed and appointed and appointed. And that's how politics works.
Yeah.
You have the anointed few.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that these people aren't smart. I'm not saying that they don't deserve something to some extent. But for 15 years, we've seen people get appointed to the Public Service Commission and get shuffled around. Gallion went through the Public Service Commission. He did the books for a couple of years, and then he got shuffled over to auditor. Gallion's from royalty too. So it's amazing to me when we talk about nepotism. It's happening right in front of us, and you just got to be able to connect the dots.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Republicans who feel shut out of that too. They know they're not part of that pipeline to power here in North Dakota. And when you look at the PSC, so they build up these tens, or Julie Fedorchak even had, I think she had over $100,000 in her campaign account for PSC when she ran for House. Now, in North Dakota, you're a North Dakota Republican. How much money does it actually cost you to run for PSC? You could do it on nothing. You could, the last few cycles, you would have been able to coast without spending any money. Or you can hire campaign staff, or you can hire your family as campaign staff and use that money that you got from companies that you regulate to, add to your personal income.
Certainly. Yeah, no, it is corrupt. And I hope that you guys start to see it and to start to connect the dots out there in podcast land. So what are you up to now, Trygve? We had a big election. You quit your job. You leaned in as hard as you possibly could have. I cannot thank you for running with me. You ran. You put an amazing campaign together. I loved parading with you and saying, hey guys, this is my friend Trygve Hammer. He flew planes and helicopters and drove trains and did all the things. And you are a really easy person to introduce. So thank you for running. What are you up to now?
Lately, I've been writing. I started that Substack newsletter during the campaign, and was told that it wasn't going to bring in anything in donations. It was just going to be a hobby. Well, it brought in $250,000. And then I have continued that, and people have converted over because people were donating saying, I don't usually donate, but I enjoy the writing so much that I'm going to donate. And then those people became paid subscribers, and each one I put out gets a few more of those. So, and there's plenty to write about now. And people are looking, I think, for, we're living in this age of the little, 140, 280 characters. And people were looking for something longer form. They were looking at something more thoughtful. And right now they're looking for things that have a little bit of hope and a little bit of humor in them. At least the people who are subscribing to my newsletter are. And that's what hits. They're like, thank you for making me laugh. Thank you for giving me hope. A couple of them are like, please run for president. Have to run that one by the wife. But it's just been great. And I tell people that writing is what I've always wanted to do. I just did all these little things like fly Marine Corps helicopters and be an airline pilot and a forward air controller and go to Iraq as an infantry officer and the oil field and the railroad. Those are all ways of hiding from what I really wanted to do. And now I've just kind of stumbled into actually doing that thing. And so far, I can make a living at it.
Well, I think those things really rounded you out as a candidate and a person. And maybe you had to go through all those stages to get here. I had a fairly unconventional career too, and it got me to where I am. And I can connect all those dots, have given me a trait or an attribute that I can lend as a party leader, as a candidate. And I think that I want in my politicians well-rounded people like yourself.
Yeah. Well, and look at it. We have so many people in Congress who have never had a day of financial stress in their lives, and that there's a lot of Americans who are on the edge financially, who can't come up with $400 in an emergency, who have less than 1,000 in savings. So we've got people living on the edge. We've got a lot of people who've struggled, but we don't have anybody in Congress who struggled. And probably not many in the state house either, or state Senate.
No, it'll be interesting times. And you know what? I'm really concerned locally that that we're going to feel some struggle here. I was talking to our good friend, Katrina, this week, and she said that North Dakota hasn't struggled like the nation has. For a lot of the state, I'll say, and I think her inference was that we have had a pretty non-typical economy. There are a lot of people that are hurting, and I have to acknowledge that. But there are also a lot of people who haven't been affected like the people have nationally. And kind of what her inference was is that in the 80s, we hurt a lot here in North Dakota. Farm kid from the 80s, it was not a great time to live. But, maybe that time's coming. We're seeing the tariffs and the trade wars. I saw today Canada's going to start shipping oil to a port directly exporting to China. They're not even going to ship the oil down through the United States. Obviously, our tariff game, I'll call it, is going to affect our soybean market. Again, our soybeans used to be at 13, 14 bucks a bushel. They went down to 7. We're getting that market back. And now tariffs are going to take it back again. Do you think that this Trump trade war, what are your thoughts on that affecting North Dakota in a big time way?
It's going to be a negative effect on North Dakota like we knew it would. Like I think everybody who voted for Trump knew or should have known that it would. You look at Canada, so they have this oil deal shipping over to China. That opens up a new avenue, a new market. And then right now, China looks like a stable, reliable trading partner. The United States does not look like a stable, reliable trading partner for anyone. So yes, that is going to hurt us, and we may never get those markets or those trade situations back. To go in there and say that the trade, that NAFTA was broken, but now we have the USMCA and it is perfect. It was the best trade deal anybody ever saw. Well, these tariffs run counter to the USMCA. So, what gives? What's going on? And so, we're going to lose soybean market. We're going to probably lose oil market or access to oil. Prices are going to go up. Just everything that we knew would happen with tariffs is going to happen. And just that unreliability.
I'm glad you ended on unreliability because I wanted to pick that up. I have guys at work that work for me. I want to provide them a stable income, a stable job that they can come to and count on day over day over day. And I break my back bending over backwards to make sure that stability is there. And I see value in that. So I don't know why, when we come up to president, don't we want a stable country? Don't we want things to be, I don't want to say the status quo because I do want change. I do want things to get better. But when we're talking about international trade partners, we want stability in our markets. We don't want this up and down, where's the ball going to bounce in the market graph. We want things to be in an upward tick.
Yeah.
What do you think? You've managed people, you've been around. Stability a good thing in your life?
Yeah, you want as much stability as you can get. Because, okay, for instance, I'm going to see my son's graduation in Washington, D.C. in May. Well, if I can't count on having enough money to get there, that's going to create more financial stress. You just can't plan ahead if you do not have that stability. And you want to be able to know that you can rely on your friends as in trading partners, your friends as in defense partners. And it's just a shame that we are giving that away, that we're not looking like the strong, reliable trading and defense partner that we could be.
Well, we're supposed to be a world leader. Like, we're supposed to be the world leader. We've been helping out with the war in Ukraine and Russia. And now all of a sudden a new administration comes in and there's an about face.
Yeah. And just so, was it yesterday or the day before, Trump said that, Russia's fought hard for the territory they've gained in Ukraine. They've lost a lot of soldiers, so he thinks they ought to keep it. One, that's stupid. Two, I thought he was a good negotiator. I thought that was his thing. He just look at the starting point he just gave to Putin. That is not a good negotiation starting point.
Well, and my gosh, of all the people that have lost their lives over this, and now we're just going to bend over backwards and give it to them. Like, what are those lives for? And also, like, that whole area is in rubble. A good friend of mine, business friend and neighbor, had gotten several Ukrainians to work for him throughout the last summer. He does roofing, siding, and gutters. And oh my gosh, they showed me the pictures from their loved ones over there. The disaster over there is insane. It's something that I don't think a lot of Americans can really imagine because we're so numb to seeing, a 6-second clip on the news, but to actually think about the buildings, the roads are gone, the bridges are gone, dams released waters, flooding. And now we're just going to give that area to Putin.
Yeah. And I don't know how much time we have here.
Couple of minutes. Anything you talk about is on the table.
One other thing that Trump did that didn't get a lot of attention was that he fired the boards of visitors for all of the service academies. And so what he's looking to do is make the service academies ideologically pure, Trump pure. So what you saw at the beginning of the Ukraine war with the Russian armor all lined up on a road and running out of fuel and just ready to be struck by our weapons or the Ukraine's weapons, that was a result of having military leadership selected not for their expertise and not for their competence, but for their loyalty to Putin. So that is what he's actually looking to try to build everywhere in government right now, is loyalty to Trump, not loyalty to the Constitution and not real expertise or competence.
I think of like the lack of humanity in the actions that I'm seeing in government. And I hear a lot, some words that I've been using for 5 years in politics: waste, fraud, and abuse. And I hear it over and over and over again. And I agree. I don't want waste, fraud, or abuse in my government. I've said that phrase more than anyone I know. And I'm hearing it on the news. But we're firing civil servants that have been government employees for careers or half of a career. And now we're just firing them because they don't agree with Trump. They don't agree with the chief of staff. And that's not right. These people aren't evil. They're not trying to manipulate the government. They're just doing their jobs.
Yeah. And we have a whole segment of society that's been led to believe that they're not doing anything, that these people are, just lazy, sit in the chair and collect government paycheck kind of people. When I have seen those people working around the world, around the country, and they're usually salaried and they're working long hours. This idea that they're sucking off the government teat is just not true.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I don't like to, a phrase I came up with is that you can't infer intent or assign intent to action. And when you say, well, those people are just sitting around, they're not getting things done, they're not efficient, you're assigning intent to their action. And you can't do that because you don't know. You're getting into their psyche. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what their intentions are. But we're seeing that play out. And I think what I'm afraid of is that it's playing to our carnal fears and our anger. And I'll say that as America's fears and anger. I'm not angry. I mean, I am, but I'm not. I believe in others. I believe in humanity. Do we need to work to progress this thing? Absolutely. But I just see people being angry about this whole system, about the whole governance. And I want to be hopeful because I think if we band together, we can make a difference.
Yeah. And if you want to look at government where the waste is, you don't look at the government employees. Where you should really be looking is the government contractors. There's a lot more money there for one thing. The employees, I forget it's a low percent that we actually pay to our non-DOD government employees. So that isn't where you're going to find it, and they're always open to audit and on the government computer system. So it's actually harder for them to waste anything really. It's when these government contracts and the government contractors. I've told the story before of working doing manpower and training plans for Marine Corps acquisitions at a government contractor, and just not having anything to do on a day or trying to guess where we were going to go next. But I had to bill the government every day, and it made me feel guilty. I couldn't wait to get out of that job.
Well, and I think about like here in North Dakota, the people that I worked up at the Capitol in the tower, they're sitting in their cubicle getting work done. When there's downtime, they go to their boss's office. They have a couple minutes of coffee and they come up with a new innovation to try to make their job, their system more efficient. And then I think, where is the waste, fraud, and abuse? It's with Jason Doctor going over on a remodel without a contractor's license in a building that he wrote himself a lease for. That's where the waste, fraud, and abuse is. It's not in the employees.
It goes all the way down to if you're a state legislator right now down in Bismarck and you're staying at a hotel that serves breakfast, but you're still charging the state for breakfast. That is waste, fraud, and abuse.
Funny fact, at the Public Service Commission, I didn't get the 25%, 20% of the $35 a day in per diem if my hotel gave me a continental breakfast, even if it was a garbage breakfast. I couldn't claim that $7 or $8. So it's funny that it's for them, but not for me.
Exactly.
Anyway, Trygve, we're coming to the end of this. Do you have any sage words of wisdoms, or can we plug again your Substack? Trygve's Substack is insane, you guys. If you haven't read it, you have to. It's like Jon Stewart and The Daily Show. Like, it's that good. It really is. Like, you could be a writer. Have you ever thought about sending your scripts into them and seeing if you could get a gig writing for a political satire community?
Now, that would be fun. I might drive him as crazy as I drive Kelly here when I'm writing these things. So I write it and I give it to her, and she says it's great, and I go, oh no, it's terrible, and then I do a whole bunch more changes, and she thinks it's going to be half an hour, but it's 3 hours, and then I come back and I give her something completely different. But writing is a way of thinking. Really, it kind of gets my thoughts out. And if I don't, right now, you can get so angry if you can't find a little humor in it. And I got to tell you, sometimes when you're wielding the pen as a sword, humor is the way that blade comes out. But it's just TrygveHammer.substack.com, or I think if you Google Trygve Hammer Substack, you'll find it.
We'll put a link in it just underneath so people can click on it, or we'll have a scroll or something through the magic of how all that works. I don't know. The wizards do it. I don't know how it works. But Trygve, I tell you, I appreciate your time. I appreciate running with you. I'm very honored to know you and to call you a friend. And for those, no joke, the last thing I texted Trygve, I shit him you not, which was from his latest Substack. Very good. almost tops the last text to him, the premature evacuator. And I mean, Trygve's writing at a good level, so check him out.
All right.
Trygve, I appreciate you. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, Pat.
That was such a great interview with the one and only Trygve Hammer. I absolutely love hearing from him, and I encourage everyone to seek him out on a lot of the social media and especially Substack. I know he mentioned the work that he's doing there, so definitely check him out and share his content. I'm just going to leave with encouraging everyone in the Minot area we finally have a date, time, and location for the reorg here for Sears Valley. And that's going to be March 8th at 10 a.m. And it's going to be at the IBEW building. And I'm really excited to see new people show up to this. We've seen a lot of growth at our monthly meetings. And so again, I just encourage everyone to go to that if you can. Jamie's going to be there and he's going to be speaking. So great opportunity for you to meet him as well.
Great. Very much excited to be back in my homeland of Minot, my hometown of Minot. Again, just sort of encourage the same thing. Go to Dem-NPL.com to find when your district reorg is happening, and please go there. I will challenge you. Certainly, I challenge you to show up, and if you show up, that's great. We'd love to have you. If you want to take an extra step, think about someone in your community, a friend, a family member, a neighbor that maybe you've talked to about this stuff, and maybe you feel the same way about what's happening in our state and our country. Invite them to join along with you. These meetings typically only last an hour or two at the most. And it's a good way to, at least at a minimum, you are surrounded by people who understand what you're going through. And I can tell you, having been to a number of these meetings already around the state, it feels really good just to be in the same room with people who you know that they know how you feel. So go to Dem-NPL.com to find those events. The next one coming up is this weekend, this Saturday, the 1st in Cass County in Fargo. And then next weekend, there's a few more. There's one on Saturday, the 1st. So I should say the 22nd is the Cass County. And Saturday, the 1st is Grand Forks. All the Northern Valley districts are getting together Saturday morning on the 1st. And then the next day on Sunday afternoon in Velva, the Selzer family ancestral homeland of Velva, will be on Sunday afternoon on the 2nd. So I hope to see folks at those ones as well, albeit both of those. So I challenge you to show up and really challenge you to bring someone along with if you can. Pat, how about you?
Well, Jamie, I of course should pitch March 22nd, Bizman Dems reorg at Horizon Middle School, which was actually the first event I ever went to. I stepped in hard. I challenged my mom to go to it. And since then, I've just kept leaning in, and that's all I'll ask of anyone. Regardless if you're middle of the road Democrat or if you're progressive, please come be a part of our party. And, I wanted to talk about something you mentioned on the intro, Jamie, about candidacy. And, I'll tell you, I think a lot of first-time candidates have a lot of what I'll call imposter syndrome. They don't think they're good enough. They think, who am I to be in this position? And then as they go down this candidacy journey, they talk to people and they round out their knowledge, because as Democrats, we are boots on the ground. We hit the road running. And we like to talk to people to hear about how they feel about government. That's how we do it. And also, I think they start testifying like Lisa Hermosillo. And I'm sure when you're in committee hearings, Lisa, you're hearing some of the absolute berserk ideas that some of these elected officials have. And I think the longer you're around, you kind of lose that imposter syndrome. I've been on the ballot twice on a statewide level, and I've absolutely loved not only being on the ballot, but being more on the campaign trail. I love learning about myself. I love learning about the state. I love learning about my wife as we've been on these journeys together, and we've hit those highs and lows, and we've done them together. So if you guys are thinking about candidacy, it is absolutely the highlight of a life journey to be able to wear that cloak of respect that everyone gives you in that role. So please step up, step in, lean in. I'll leave on this one, you guys. Michelle Obama at National Convention had this quote. She said, "There's something in the air, and it's the contagious power of hope." And I think we're feeling that with each other. So please lean in. Please come to the events. If you need anything at all, we're here for you. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. Till next week.